This is JJ Humphrey. We're back on Elephant in the Room today. Our cohort, Bobby Cleveland, got sick and can't join us. Sure that he is disappointed in that. Bob, we hope you get feeling well. Hope you get feeling better. Today, we've got two really, really special guests on. I have been working with these ladies for quite some time now, last probably 4 to 5 years, working on several issues, but mainly DHS. So I have Teresa and I have Rosario with me. These ladies are just courageous. They've been fighting the system, standing up and calling out DHS, OJA, OCCY, and several of these other agencies. Right now, we've actually went after OSBI as well for not doing their job. And so these ladies both are involved in filing a grand jury. So they spend a lot of time getting that prepared, writing that up, and getting it submitted. It has now been approved for Tulsa County, and now we're working on getting signatures. So I'm going to start with Rosario. Why don't you tell us how you got involved in this and what you hope to accomplish and what we're doing?
So I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma to work for the First 48 as a television producer. And I was in a relationship that had domestic violence where my ex was the perpetrator. And I never imagined that family court would not protect domestic violent victims or children who are victims of abuse. And sadly, that's been the harsh reality for over 6 years now. And I went to go work for DHS. I always give a disclaimer that whenever I'm speaking anywhere, I'm not in my official capacity as a worker. I'm only a mother whose children were failed by DHS. And I went to go work for DHS after a major significant failure. And I really just didn't want to be the mom that thought or said DHS failed my kids. I really wanted to know by experience, by training, by policy that my children were failed. And I've confirmed that with my experience and knowing what I know from the job and what other supervisors have shared with me. And, it's just, it's sad. I don't have my children. They're in a private guardianship, and I haven't had them for 3 years, come January 13th. And I work for DHS. I supervise parents for the department. I'm allowed into jails. I'm entrusted with trust where nobody pats me down when I walk into a jail to speak to a parent. I can walk in with whatever I want to walk in at a jail, and nobody pats me down or checks in, questions the authority or the reason why I'm there, or that I'm not trustworthy or unsafe. Yet at the same time, the state of Oklahoma has taken my children through a private guardianship court. I have never been found unfit. I have never been substantiated on by DHS. I haven't had allegations against me as being an unsafe parent or a neglectful parent. And sadly, I will say it, if I can lose my children in the state of Oklahoma, anybody's in danger of losing their children. I don't have a history of substance abuse. I don't drink alcohol. I've never tried drugs in my life. I've never spanked my children. I use therapeutic parenting, where it is gentle parenting with my children. And so, I don't have mental illness where I wouldn't have my children. I have a psych eval that checks out. I go to therapy. I have a very good therapist and believe that therapy is great for anybody that's, lost their children and that is going through a very difficult time through family court. And so there's no evidence to say that I'm an unfit mother, yet here I am. And I find that a lot of parents are in this situation, and something has to be done, something, because if I can't recover my children, I don't have a path to recover my children. Whenever there's backdoor deals done, whenever it depends on what attorney you have, how much money you have, what influence one party has over the other, it's time to stand up. I do it with a lot of fear, but I don't have an option. My children don't have an option anymore. I don't have an option, and other parents don't. So it doesn't do me any good to stand back and be scared and watch nothing change.
Well, Teresa, how did you get involved in this grand jury process?
Well, besides all of us kind of just collaborating on different ideas and different issues, when I started and I first met you, I was very much involved in just the cannabis side of it. I got introduced to Rosario and she kind of brought me in. We, organized a few rallies together, try to work on different legislation to see what changes needed to take place. I mean, I've always been somewhat legislatively involved, but on this grand jury, um, well, I mean, it was just a matter of a phone call and me being on vacation where we were in a position where this needed to be redrafted and refiled. So I just kind of jumped in. I mean, I have some experience reading language and reading cases, but when I first started, it was more like, I'll do Rosario a favor, meet with her, have a conversation, kind of give her an idea of, what could be done. Then we just became really good friends. And so after reading her case, and the further I get into knowing, the very details and the chronological order of events, the more I realize just how messed up of a system we have. And you and I have spoken on numerous occasions that what we want to get out of this, I mean, you get into something with this idea and then you realize the biggest issues, and that is we've allowed these agencies to function as freestanding government, and there's a lack of oversight and there's a lack of transparency, and nobody's being held accountable for the things that the wrongdoings that they do. So I think the further we get into this, the more I realize that if we, the people, don't utilize our voice, then these things won't change. So it's a very long story that I'm trying to summarize as quickly as I can. But sometimes life leads you in a path that you didn't even foresee. And this is kind of one of those situations.
Well, I absolutely understand. Of course, over the last few years, we've all got to be pretty good friends. And, again, if you'd have told me kind of the same story like you're telling, if you'd have told me that I was going to be involved in DHS cases, because, when I came up there, hey, I'm law enforcement to the core, all the way to the bone. I was standing up for what I thought, came in very strong law enforcement, still very strong law enforcement. We're not asking for not strong law enforcement. We're not asking for not strong DHS. I mean, Chico said she works for DHS and wanted to get into that process and make sure that it was done right. And that's what we're all angling for. But again, what you're saying, when I watch Washington, D.C., and they're talking about the deep state, hey, we've got deep state in Oklahoma, and that is these rogue agencies that answer to no one. And again, how do you fight them? And when they have the courts on their side and you go in now, Chico, on your case, basically, they did file kidnapping on you. Now, if I understand that, and that's when I first met you, was when this was going on. You basically took your kids and tried to move them to a safe spot to get away from domestic abuse. And they filed, even though you didn't have a custody hearing yet, and there was no custody set up on your kids, they filed kidnapping on you, right?
So what they filed was child stealing. I had custody of my children. DHS called me and told me, and I have it audio recorded, that they were going to substantiate sexual abuse and that they had met their protocol. They advised that I get emergency custody. I wasn't able to because my attorney was sick at the time. To best comply with them, there was notice to suspend visitation filed. I filed a protective order. The protective order was granted. The father tried to get emergency custody of the children, knowing he had a protective order that had been granted and served to him. And he asked for, in the alternative, for the children to be given to grandmother, to his mom, custody of the children. And that was denied by a judge. And the judge left the kids with me, acknowledged the protective order. There was no protective order where I couldn't leave the state, or any custody order where I couldn't leave the state. I took all the measures that I was supposed to take, did everything I was supposed to. And after that, I got scared because I thought, what's going to happen if for the first time there is accountability? And my legal team didn't feel safe for me to be in the home. I didn't feel safe for me to be in the home. So I left the state that same exact day. And then I come to find out that paternal grandmother, even though the family court judge had denied that she get guardianship or custody in the alternative, they went forum shopping, which is when you go shopping for a more favorable outcome with whatever court you think is going to be more favorable, and they applied for a guardianship, and an emergency guardianship. And two very important things is, my case is filled with conflicts of interest and also a lot of situations where the judicial process was violated. So the judge that gave out the emergency protective order 2 days later gave out an emergency guardianship order. And there's an Oklahoma statute for judges, and it's Rule 2.11. And it is that if a judge has adjudicated a case, they're not allowed to adjudicate a form of a case or that type of a case. And so this judge retired on that same day, granted an emergency guardianship, even though he shouldn't have, because he had just granted a protective order with the exact same elements of the case, the same children, the same parties. And how do you undo that? I haven't been able to, and I wasn't served this guardianship. I was at a domestic violence shelter. I did what people told me to do. I did what officials told me to do. Go get an emergency, protect my children, don't hand over my children. And part of my legal team even contacted the U.S. attorney, and the U.S. attorney said, go to the Mexican consulate for me to get help after they're hearing that attorneys and judges are colluding. And so now the district attorney, Steve Kunzweiler, wants to prosecute me, and has for almost 3 years, whenever all I did was follow what everybody was telling me to do. And at this time, I'm reaching out to Homeland Security for help, the FBI for help, the U.S. Attorney for help, the DA for help, law enforcement for help, DHS for help. There was no child stealing that occurred. There was no official or valid court order. They circumvented the process. I didn't violate the law. They violated the law, but here we are. You have to play by whatever they want the law to be that day.
Well, I got in an argument with the guy who really thinks he's about 90% lawyer. He doesn't have a law degree, and he's like, "Well, JJ, you need to understand your authority as a representative." And I'm like, "Dude, I understand my authority as a representative, but what do you do when they don't understand you? When the law says one thing?" We just had a hearing, which you were involved in, when we had a hearing, and we showed that DHS and others in other agencies knew that kids were being sexually assaulted and did absolutely nothing. Some other things did absolutely nothing, physically assaulted. And we showed all that. We showed your case where significant wrongdoing, what I believe falsifying charges against you to try to force you. I believe that is, has to do with your status, so that people understand she is here legally. She's here you're not a citizen yet, right?
She's a resident.
Correct. So I'm a U.S. permanent resident through VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women Act. So the government, federal government, has reviewed domestic violence and all other evidence, a lot of evidence that has even been included in these courts. And they have given this protection status, which is one of the highest burdens to meet. They get to consider everything, domestic violence, substance abuse, child abuse. They get to consider everything and years of it, not just one specific event. And so I was granted VAWA status, and I'm a U.S. permanent resident. And over a year ago, I could have applied for citizenship for the first time, but I can't with these pending child stealing charges. And so
and do you think that that's probably what the motive is behind that, is to try to force your hand to get you to just take a deal on your kids by holding this over your head and trying to make it something where, hey, we can deport you if we're found guilty, or these kind of things?
Mm-hmm. I definitely think so. I mean, I know so from the very beginning, and I have evidence where my ex used my immigration status whenever I was still married to him. And it's always been used as a threat. And so I absolutely believe that they, they think that I'm going to just do some deal. And now they're at the point where they want me to sign a deferred prosecution 6 months, and I didn't do anything wrong. They're the ones that just need to dismiss it because I'm not, going to. And my attorney tells me that the reason they don't want to dismiss it is because they think, and at least my criminal law attorney believes, I have a lawsuit against several of them, including the grandmother, the father, guardian ad litem, the attorneys, the judges, the DA. And so they're not wanting to not budge, but they're also not taking it to court, because I highly doubt that a jury, and a lot of attorneys doubt that a jury would find me guilty with all of the evidence that they circumvented the process. And I was doing what professionals told me to do, including a U.S. attorney telling me to go to a Mexican consulate to try to get help. And while I'm reaching out, and really the DA kind of, like in the juvenile center, he received emails throughout. So he's more of a witness in this case than he should be a prosecutor. And so, we're just seeing a lot of the same players in a lot of these cases that, there's a lot of conflict of interest, and they don't want to step aside and let the right officials investigate these matters.
Right. And in fact, we called for a hearing on the OSBI. We called on the OSBI, did a legal as a chairman of corrections, criminal justice corrections. We have the right, if I have a majority of our committee sign on with me and ask for a hearing or order a hearing from the OSBI, we can do that. And one was denied. We were shut down by our own House. We were shut down by the OSBI. We were shut down by everybody. We've not seen the governor come forward and, order an investigation. We've not seen the AG come and order an investigation. We've not seen leaders in the House or Senate step up and try to order that. So again, and it's not just one. Teresa, I know that you are kind of like me. You got involved in this. You started going. In fact, you've helped organize a bunch of rallies and got very, very involved in this thing. And so, are you as shocked as I am to see as many cases? I know I've came and spoken at a couple of those rallies, and it's just unbelievable. You can't get away. I mean, like for me, I just go from one person to the next. I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you my story. Have you been shocked as I am at what
it's absolutely overwhelming. And the most overwhelming part is, like, the more involved I get, the more those messages start coming in. I mean, we're talking from one person, I may get 15 emails, full of their evidence, and having to decipher through a lot of these cases. Like, I don't have the time to do it. And it's heartbreaking because What am I going to do when I finally do it? What am I going to do with that information? It is such a helpless feeling as a citizen to have people that bring you their cases and bring you their stories, and you know that they're valid because you've seen it. But then what? You don't, I feel powerless in this situation, which is one of the main reasons why this grand jury has really inspired me and a lot of people to feel like, hey, this is the first time that we're going to have the opportunity to have a voice. This is the first time that the people come together and say, hey, you need to look at this. And I want to kind of touch back on something that Rosario had said, just to kind of more of a question. And I'm going to kind of break it down in how I understand it. Now, when my niece was going through brain cancer treatment, her doctor made a recommendation on what the treatment should be. Had my sister violated what that recommendation was, they can actually charge her. Was that something they can do, considering DHS had told you to file or recommended you file for emergency custody and stop the visitation? Had you not done that, could they have charged you? Because that's the way I interpret the law.
Sure. They
And,
would.
and they absolutely would have. It would have been a failure to protect. It could have been enabling child abuse. It could have been several allegations against me. They told me what to do. I was not going to not do what they told me.
So
to do.
in hindsight, that you didn't have a choice at that point. Whenever DHS called you and notified you and told you what actions to take, you were under their guidance at that point. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. And so it's
even better, Teresa. One, they gave the right advice. You know what I'm saying? What they told you to do, had you not done, literally they could have charged you, and guess what? They could have legitimately charged you, because again, the advice they were given, and that's where we need to say there's a lot of good DHS workers out there. We're not trying to demonize every worker, but their administration has allowed their agency to become very corrupt, and they know these things, they know these cases, and they just want to turn a blind eye to all of those. Hey, I didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and I do want to say, because it is important to note that DHS does have good workers. And what's so difficult is that whenever you have bad workers, it takes a toll on the good workers. Whenever good workers receive cases that it's like, I overhear, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have removed those children. I wouldn't be doing, and so a lot of workers themselves, their cases are tied because somebody else made decisions before them. But I've experienced many good workers. And so this fight really is for everyone. This investigation is for everyone. We believe that DHS workers need to be compensated better. Their workloads need to be examined. There needs to be
they need less responsibility too, Rosario. That's another point that we've been making, is a lot of these caseworkers are taking on the position of diagnosing, calling people mentally unstable or saying that, they're not in the right state of mind. Like, those are decisions that, people that are qualified should be making. And that can be detrimental to a case as well.
Yeah.
They're taking on the role of a police officer by investigating crimes. Like, these are huge liabilities that they're overlooking.
That's one of the things, Teresa, that I really have a big issue that I've raised, is because we had a case here in Oklahoma where a young girl was continuously abused. It's called the Kelsey Briggs Act. And she was continuously abused, and they never did anything. And they had a lot of knowledge. They should have stepped in, wouldn't step in. And out of that case, they came up with, if you have something that's abusive like that, it must be referred to law enforcement. And guess what? The DHS has created a vetting process where now, oh, no, we don't refer everything. We just vet these things. And probably if 1/3 gets turned over, I'd be really shocked if 1/3 actually gets turned over. And just like on this, on if it's actual child stealing, who investigated that? Who investigated your child stealing case, Chico?
The district attorney, the elected district attorney. So
we would have an officer actually go out. So if you'd had an officer like myself go out and actually review this case, guess what? I'd have come back and said, there is no child. How you steal your own child? There's no custody hearing. Now, if a judge had come up and said, okay, you get your kids on this day, he gets kids on this day, you took them on the day that he is supposed to get them, or you're not supposed to leave the state and you leave the state, okay, then you violated a court order, and now we could say you're child stealing. But when there is zero court order, you have your kids, they put in a protective order. Grandparents don't have rights. Now, we could argue should they or whatever. We could argue about a bill for that. But right now, they do not have. So who had legal standing? Nobody had legal standing. Or how did they even file the charge on you? And again, that's why they're willing to negotiate and try to plead that out to absolutely nothing, because they know they violated that. And again, I'd have to go back and look at them falsifying charges. But I believe that it's illegal to file false charges, knowingly, willfully, intentionally file false charges on a person. It's abuse of office.
We have to abide by certain rules. They should too. And we've just gotten away from that because of the complacency and how we handle our system. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I mean, this is our opportunity to step up. And this is the first time that the people are actually having the opportunity to speak out and to go against this and question those in authority. So, if we, the people, continue to be complacent and not utilize these, opportunities to be heard, then, we have to put some blame on the people. Like, we have to come together. It's urgent at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's up to the people. I mean, it's the people that we talk this all the time. We talk about a government for the people, by the people, but we, the people, never use the authority or the tools in which we got. Be it we keep voting the same people in because they've got money and because they run all the ads, and instead of us getting educated and actually finding out what has this person done or not done, we just keep voting the same old people in who do absolutely nothing. And one of the things I've been just really disappointed in is how few people we've had in our legislature step up and try. Again, I y'all can say like you think, but I could name maybe a handful of legislators, 6, 7 at the most, that have even tried to assist us on these things. I mean, we've seen nobody step up. And again, we have evidence. We have massive evidence of, in fact, we got reports of them waterboarding mental health kids, and we have affidavits of that, and we have pictures of them abusing these kids. And guess what? Nobody's stepping up. Got a few sitting in the background. Oh, well, we'll help you from back here. Well, guess what? Nobody's stepping up. There's a few, Dana, Jet, Gabe's coming on. He's been in a lot of our meetings. But, other than that, myself, David Harden,
Danny, you got
Danny,
Chris Banning. He's been up there.
Yep. Yeah. So, and I'm going to tell you, that's really pretty close to it,
Yeah.
I mean, we get support in small increments. They might support this, but not support that, or they might be for this and not. We'll just take it wherever we can get it. Nobody's going to be as bold as you. I know that much, JJ. Like, nobody's going to speak out as hard, and nobody's going to be as fearless. Like, that's just your role, and you just need to accept it. It's you.
I enjoy. Hey, I'm enjoying. I have fun. I'm not a good politician. I don't know why. But you know what, Teresa? We were talking about this before we went on. I've got a deal going on with another agency that I'm meeting with Monday. I'm meeting again Thursday. I've met with them 2 separate times to say, you know what? I don't want to go out on y'all. Let's try to work this together. Let's fix the problem without going public. Let's go out and be positive for once in a while and go out and work together to come up with a solution. I've got a solution. I'm willing to work with them on that. I met with DHS over a year ago. I think Chico, you were one of those cases that we went in over a year ago, not this summer, but the summer before. And we had hearings after, and we had 12, 13 people come in and tell their stories. and showed that. I mean, we filmed it. We had it on television, everything else. DHS come to me, said, hey, we don't want to fight you. We won't work with you. I was like, guess what? That's what I want. Let's try to roll up our sleeves. Let's try to fix these problems. Do you know not one case did they fix? Not one case. And so after a period of time, and with massive evidence, I mean, I've turned in stuff, evidence showing, videos, audios, and everything else, not one case. And so at some point in time, you have to say, okay, gloves come off. We started doing that. We started the gloves coming off. We had that hearing. That's when the gloves really came off. And we've had to rally and nothing done. And so again, we just ran out of road. There's no options. But this is what, I mean, the people of Tulsa, and again, I hope people listening on here, the people of Oklahoma City, the people of Grady County, which is Chickasha, hey, y'all need to hear, you need to get involved. You need to get with these two ladies and work out a way to volunteer to take up the petition. Because right now where we're at, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, we need 5,000 signatures.
Correct. So we lose about 15 to 20% of signatures. We've been told by previous grand juries that were successful, that we're talking like a decade ago. We saw the one that's, there was one filed in Oklahoma County earlier this year, and it was denied. They got 5,000 signatures, lost about 900 of them because they're not registered to vote, or you can't read their handwriting. And so you have to get about 15 to 20% more. And so we need a lot of help in Tulsa, a lot of help. We have printed out sheets. If people can only make the commitment to get 12 signatures, and that's their friends and family, please do. We have the signature sheets available. You go and do it at your leisure. Bring them back. They need to be notarized. We have people on our team that can notarize them, or your bank can notarize them. Teresa is a notary. But at this point, we're asking for small commitments. If people have small commitments, whether you can do 24, commit to 24 to 12. And if you have a little bit more time, commit to a lot. We have one mother that is extremely dedicated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this mother, she lost her child's dead. One of her children is dead. And so this is her life, her mission. This is, she doesn't stop. She's, from early morning to late at night. And she's the biggest advocate for this grand jury, and the greatest example that even though we've been through all of this, it's the one thing that we can do that hopefully can look at and examine the system, investigate it. And if our allegations are true, then, they can turn back a bill of indictment, a probable cause. There can be even a removal from office. But I will say this is historical. Never in our country has there been a demand to have officials in charge of child safety be investigated, and not just investigated, but if they have done wrongdoing, such as failure to protect, failure to report to law enforcement, enabling child abuse, among many other allegations. We're asking for accountability. We're asking for criminal charges and or a removal from office. And so never before, DHS likes to call it an unprecedented attack. It is unprecedented.
I like that word, though. That's a good word. It's never been done before. I mean, yeah, it's different.
Well, and is it an attack, or is it just an indictment, like you say, of the truth? And again, where have they been? We asked them, where have they been? We asked them to order an investigation on themselves. The guy that's brand new come in. If I was brand new and this was going on, you know what I'd do? I would order an audit of my whole department. And again, this right here, I used to take over people's caseload. What I used to do when I took over somebody's caseload, I would go.
You review it thoroughly.
I would go in there and draw a big line and say, this is where I took over this case. And then I would review it, and I would say, This is what I found wrong in this case. It is being corrected today because guess what? I wasn't going to get tagged for what somebody else did. So that's if I was taking over that agency, I would have come in right off the bat, ordered a audit of everything, and I would have ordered an investigation, and then I would have stood up and said, either we have something or we don't. If we do find something, we will address that, and I would have addressed it. But instead, what they come out with for quite some time while we're going through all of this hearings and all of the stuff where our rallies, oh, we always will open our door to all, we welcome any kind of investigation. We welcome this. And then when you do get an opportunity to try to get an investigation, what do they say? Oh, it's an unprecedented, it's an attack, Wow, what happened to y'all welcome them everything? They're not too welcome, I can tell you that right now. But it is high time. And again, it's not just DHS, it's OJA. And I practically would say you can do the same thing with DOC. You can do the same thing with mental health. All of these agencies no longer answer to government. But again, government is not trying to make them. Government is complicit. So our government is complicit. I've got my reasons why I think that. But at the end of the day, it is high time somebody, and that's why I want to talk, and that's why I want to have y'all on here. If people are having an event, so if you're having a huge Christmas event and you can get a hold of these ladies, that's a great way. If you're going to have 100, 200 people there, we would love to come to your event and take signatures and to be able to set up at your events. If you are a church pastor or a leader in church, a deacon or, an assistant, secretary, whatever, and you have a role in that church, we would love to work out something to where we could get your congregation, if they're interested in not only signing, but becoming people who would carry that petition and go out and get those 12, hopefully 100. We'd look for 100 signatures. That's what we need. That's what it's going to take. It's not two people going to get this thing done. It's going to take the people. And if the people want to fix this problem, which is a horrific problem, we know that your detention center, we already have verified the kids were being molested at that detention center. To my knowledge, they've already filed some charges on that. And it appears like DHS knew that and just totally ignored it and let it happen. These are things that we need to call out. The DA weaponizing themselves to file charges on. And again, this is not the only place this is happening. We're seeing this all over the state where people are having charges filed on them, falsified records put on them. Their kids are being taken without any hearing. And again, in Chico's case there, have you ever had anything substantiated?
No.
How can they say that they have the right to take your kid? On what basis? Do they give you a basis to take?
Yeah, the guardian ad litem, who's an attorney, says I'm mentally unstable, even though she has seen the evidence, has heard my therapist testify. She's seen all evidence, substance abuse by the father. She's had disclosures by the children. She's looked at all evidence and she states that, but there's also a pattern of multiple cases where it's the same guardian ad litem, the same opposing counsel, and the same result is always the same. Opposing counsel's client gets sole custody. And so it's not just my case, it's many other cases, and there's a pattern of that. But in the guardianship case, the guardian ad litem recruited her adoption attorney for her own daughter to represent the grandmother, and they thought I wasn't going to find out because adoptions are private, but you can bet that I am turning over every single rock I can to find out information. Why has this occurred to me? Because at the beginning, it didn't make sense. It did not make sense. Even if someone had some bias, it just didn't make sense. And I didn't think I'm the only one, right? And I knew bias was difficult to prove. So I knew that what had to be proven was a pattern. And that is what's happening here. We're just seeing judges not uphold the law, circumvent the law. There's favoritism among attorneys. DHS isn't questioned enough. A lot of evidence from DHS is hearsay, and if they did it wrong.
Let me ask you a question, and either one of y'all. Do you think you're more equipped than the average person who's fighting this battle? Do you think you have more knowledge, more ability, maybe politically connected? And I know you probably don't think of yourself as politically connected, but let me tell you, you are. You've got a lot of friends in legislature. Teresa knows a lot of people in legislators. So you're connected where a lot of people don't have those connections. A lot of people don't have the DHS knowledge that you have, the education that you have, friends that understand the legal language and knowledge, or attorneys. So, can you just imagine that mother out there who has no education, no political connections, no job, just little knowledge of even how anything operates? Can you imagine them fighting this? Because you're talking about guardian ad litem. A lot of people don't even know what guardian ad litem is. For you guys that don't know, that's an attorney who represents the kids. But here's the deal. This is all what we're talking about right there is a cabal. And they're all in agreement with each other. And they all work with each other to make this system work really however they want. And all of them get paid. It's a big payout game. But all of them get their friends, the kids. So they've got friends who their kid's in trouble, but we want the grandkid. So like for this grandma to have custody of the kid, it's unheard of. Grandmas do not have rights when it comes to the kids. And for you to lose your kid on mental health when you work for the Department of Corrections, going in on the same thing is almost, that is ludicrous. That is so asinine. It's unbelievable that we're even sitting here having this conversation. Is almost unbelievable that we're having to even have that. So can you imagine? I know that you come across, I know both of you have come across these stories, and I'm getting them time and time and time. Teresa, you mentioned that a while ago. You read them, your heart goes out to them. You want to help them, but golly, here we are. We're doing a grand jury because we can't even get an investigation when we ordered a proper investigation.
It's disheartening. It is, because they're reaching out to you, with a tiny bit of hope and thinking that if they get their story to you, then there's something you can do about it. That breaks my heart that I can't do more.
Right.
It breaks my heart that we're at the mercy of the people at this moment, and all we need is their signatures, and it's hard to pry them away from, other things they're focused on. So, it's definitely disheartening. It's been difficult. And like you said, I'm in a great position that I can do something like this because I don't have anything to lose. Like, my youngest child is 18. Like, they're not going to take away my baby if I'm speaking out. And I think that's the reason why I feel I have to be as loud as I have to be, because there's so many people that can't be. So it has to be me because I'm willing to. And the willingness to do something is sometimes what it takes to get things done, because people will complain left and right and they'll talk about it. But when it comes down to doing the work, I see time and time again, people don't show up like they should.
Well, for me, I will tell you this. I when I first started getting all these, and I went to the first rally, and man, I started having people get a hold of me, and I was just kind of like, oh, I believe this case, I believe this case, but I ain't gonna believe. And then I just started checking in, and I started really digging into some of these cases, and I'm at the point to where I'm more believing. You know what I'm saying? I went from the point of not believing, receiving, and having to be convinced, to where now I just assume every case is telling the truth, and that I'd have to. I will just tell you, I believe every case that comes forward needs vetted in Oklahoma, needs vetted by a independent group, not the Department of Human Services, a real PARB. We have a group called PARB. We need to restructure PARB and actually make it work like it was intended to, and have an independent party to be able to vet every one of these cases and look at them. Hey, I interrupted you right there, Rosario.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Mhm. Yeah, so I'll say one quick comment. We have parents who have been affected by DHS, but we have terrified parents, right? And so, whenever you're doing this grand jury petition and you need the people who are affected are your biggest advocates, but whenever they're terrified, it's so difficult to have volunteers and parents who aren't already so scared because they've lost everything, or they could lose that other child that they had after losing other children. We also have parents that have, with all this trauma and stress, have illnesses and are not healthy enough to be out there door to door knocking.
Speaking of illnesses, Miss Rosario is very ill, and this has definitely been difficult on her. And even then, she shows up when she can. But I mean, she can't be out there on foot. I mean, she gets lupus flares up sometimes. I hope you don't mind I brought that up, but
It's okay. I mean, unfortunately, it's a very real reality. My doctors have told me that it's due to all of this stress. That's what the diagnosis is. I start infusions tomorrow, and just a lot of parents are dealing with a lot of sickness from all of the stress and the trauma. It's so hard for them to face a lot of this stuff, even be out there. We are seeing it with one mom, that this is empowering her, this is giving her a voice, and so we're hopeful. I understand that it's so difficult, but we're hoping that this gives people hope, and that even though you've felt so isolated, that if you get out there and champion for this grand jury, that you'll find your support group. I mean, we see it in one mom who is flourishing and finding a purpose after losing her child a year ago, and she can't bring that child back. Nobody can. And so there's a lot of, nobody can give me back my 3 years I've lost with my children. Nobody can give that, but this is our time to correct it. And so we're just hoping whatever you can do, whether it's a little bit one sheet, or whether it's 100 signatures, or a commitment of farther, we really need it. We have children who are traumatized. We have families who are traumatized, parents who are traumatized. And so we just really need help. And I really do want to say, as a worker, and I had an old co-worker also tell me, there are parents that did lose their children because they were unfit. However, children deserve to have families. Children deserve to have their parents and an opportunity to recover their parents and to have healthy, safe parents. A lot of parents are being ostracized, punished, discouraged. And sadly, what I see often, I see workers who yell at parents. It's already such a difficult position to be in. It's already humiliating to lose your children, guilt, so much. Parents have substance abuse issues. And so it's not a time to tear down a parent, it's a time to build them up. Because ultimately, whatever you think a parent did, that child needs to have trauma reduction, and that child deserves to have a safe family. And oftentimes there is a safe grandma, there's a safe aunt, and we have to give families more opportunity, because that's going to cause reduction rather than being at a strange foster home where sadly we know a lot of abuse does happen in foster homes.
When I worked out there, I mean, the sole purpose was reunification. I mean, that's what you work for. You did have terminations of custody, of rights, but man, that was always a last thing, and that was tough to get done. And now it just seems like that's just turned right around, where there's very little effort to reunify. And I'm sure there are some that work for that out there. But again, you bring up an awesome point in the stress. And again, I've been investigated, not with my kids, but I've had grand juries filed on me. I've had investigations filed on me, multiple in a 6-year period of time. I went through 65 or so investigations, and about, I don't know, 4 or 5 audits through a fire department deal. And anyways, you want to talk, had people hired to kill me. It's a pretty stressful time. And what people don't realize is what stress will do. That kind of stress will kill you. It just eats you up. And then again, the fear of retaliation is something that we just can't say enough about. We guarantee you this is real. These people aren't just dreaming up that, hey, they'll come back after and try to take my next kid. They know that's a fact. And so they're scared to come out and sign this. We need you, the people of our community, to hold our government accountable. This is what we need right now. This is what our United States, this last election was all about. It's accountability in government. That's what we're trying to do right here. We've got an early start. Hey, if y'all, so y'all got some, we got about 5 more minutes left. And so I would just like you to tell places where you can go and get this petition, or how you can go online and look up to get connected, or things like that. So would y'all, who wants to go first?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have the list here. So one place you can follow all updates is Page 6 Oklahoma. They're helping us post a lot of just updates, anything and everything to do with the grand jury, including locations that we're at. If you want to volunteer, please contact me, Rosario Chico. My phone number is 316. That's the area code, 316-300-3172. Dr. Francetta Mays has kind of appointed me to take on a lot of the responsibility, a lot of the phone calls that we're receiving from people that need help, people that want to sign, people that want to volunteer. We also have a few locations in Tulsa that have been so amazing to support our petition, that they have their petition during their working hours. We have Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge, and that's at 10 North Greenwood Avenue, South 101 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're open from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. We have Temple of Dance. That's a dance studio at 8224 East 42nd Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're open from Monday to Thursday, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So after work, that's a good location to go to. We have Tally's Good Food Cafe, and that's at 1102 South Yale Avenue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that's open every single day of the week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. We have Quickie Mart, which is more of like a skater bicycle shop, and that's at 3762 South Elm Place in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And that's Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then Sunday 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then we have Cat and Dagger Tattoo, and that's 3762 South Elm Place in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And that's Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So those are all locations our petition is at all times, where the business owners have said, we'll be here, we'll witness the signatures. And so, we have every hour basically up until 11 p.m. And so very early to very late. Get to one of these locations, sign it. I know that many people are like, oh, I'll sign it later. I'll do it. The faster you can do it, the better, because we have to organize on our end. We have to scan it. We have to type them up. We have to check every single one, make sure it was done correctly. If it wasn't, we're going to try to go get that signature that somebody forgot, that address somebody forgot, so on. But we need to get them as they come in. So whenever you guys wait, that just means later on we're going to be cramming, trying to get things organized, scanned, ready to take to go have it be counted to see how many we have. And it just helps us get a better tally now of who's going to sign the petition. So please don't wait. Get it signed today. Send your friends and family. Contact us. get even one sheet and fill it out and give it back to us. If people are disabled, we are going to their homes and getting those signatures. And so, you know, we have one amputee who's helping us collect signatures, and he's doing his friends and family. And so, you know, if you can help in any way that you can help, we really need it. This needs to be the standard, that whenever government is failing you, we have a system that is able to correct itself, and this grand jury's it. So we're hoping that this becomes what people are able to find as a solution later, that whenever government's failing you, you get to do this process. And whenever we're doing this, we're essentially organizing it for so that other grand juries can be successful, and they can learn from us and learn from our mistakes and learn as we doing it. But I do have to go because I actually have visit with my kiddos from 4 to 8.
We're going to close it out right here in this. Hey, these are two of the strongest women I know. They're standing up for their rights as well as your rights, and they're standing up for children. Guys, there's nothing more important than children. We're talking about, we are here to stop child abuse, sexual abuse, abuse from being taken from parents and removed unlawfully, and the courts using their authorities unlawfully. So please get out and help us. Please join us. Carry one of these petitions. Get out and work your neighborhood. Y'all have a blessed day. Teresa, I appreciate you.